Hi, teachers and staff. In this iPad tutorial, we're going to talk about Mosyle Classroom and Apple Classroom in order to help you differentiate and support your students in new ways that, for example, like this, will allow you to show students applications that they can use and that they can't, or help you to keep tabs or even force open applications on every student's iPad and keep them in that application to where they can't move unless you want them to. So let's take a deeper dive into how some of these pieces work.
Apologies in advance, some of the pieces of this video will be a little bit noisier than others just due to the fact that I recorded this training in a school building. As we go through, we're going to be looking for Mosyle Classroom. That is the white background with the 3 lines going across it. If it's not down at the bottom, you're going to be looking in your system apps for Mosyle Classroom. Now, when you first enter Mosyle Classroom, it will look slightly different, so I went ahead and ended the class that I had running, and I'm going to give you a better picture of what it will look like when you first jump into Mosyle Classroom. When you first load in, you're going to notice that in your classes, you're going to have all of the different sections of your classes, but it really won't matter which one that you select because all of them are going to have all of your kindergarten students rostered, whether it's the reading or math or your kindergarten homeroom class, but that's going to be the one that we're going to be selecting. Now, the way the Mosyle class is designed is it's meant to kind of keep tabs on what students are doing while the class is running, in quotes. Right now, my class is not running in Mosyle Classroom, so therefore nothing is currently being tracked, logged, blocked, hidden on my students' devices. But as soon as I'm to press start class and indicate how long it would be for, with the maximum being 2 hours, but don't worry, you can extend that time, you can pause that time, all of those things are optional as well. But as soon as I start that class and determine what students are here and what students are not, I can then go through and really have more capabilities in keeping track of what my students are doing, mute every single application, for example, hide apps that aren't on my study apps list, which I'll show you how to do. And you could even hide basically anything from the internet browser you don't want students to be going on either. So now we're going to be kind of just walking through some of the pieces of Mosyle Classroom, what it has to offer, and how it can support your classroom management. The very first section that is already toggled on is just preparing the classroom. We're going to leave that toggled on. The next section would be the hiding apps section, which is what is favored and what is not, what you want your students to see and what you don't want them to see. We'll talk about how to do that in a minute here. As well as right below that, the third would be if you wanted to whitelist only certain sites that students can go to in kindergarten. I'm not sure that that's applicable, but we'll talk about that as well if you choose. Over on the side here, you can see that I have study apps that's currently toggled off. If I was to toggle that on, it would then turn on study apps and what I have rolling here. So I went ahead and clicked on it. I didn't turn it on yet, but you can see right now I have 2 applications that are currently added to my study apps section. So this does take a minute because you're going to want to go through and add the applications that you feel that your students are going to be using daily. But don't worry, if you miss one or you add one, you're like, whoops, I didn't mean to add that. You can change this in the moment and will update automatically on your students' devices. So for example, if I want to go through and I have Kahoot and Seesaw here, but I need to add in Clever, for example, I'm going to go into the bottom where it says add applications to the list. And right now I'm on native apps. That would just be the apps that come with the iPad. So maybe, for example, I want to add in Safari, but maybe I don't. I can also scroll up. This is super important. Don't miss this. There's a drop-down box and it shows apps and books for Valley View School District. This is going to be all the apps that we've actually pushed to student devices like ABCYA, like BrainPop Junior. And the other component that I was looking for was Clever. I'm going to go ahead and press the check mark here, and that's gone ahead and added those applications to the list. So now, if I am to turn on study apps, which I'll show you live in just a moment, then only these applications are going to be the ones that appear on my students' devices once my class starts. Now remember, I haven't yet started the class in Mosyle Classroom, so it's important that you do that if you wish to have hidden apps active. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to go ahead and press start class, and then for the next 100 minutes, whatever I have running and active in Mosyle Classroom will apply. So I'm going to turn on the site apps piece. So that means only the apps that I had available in my apps list are going to appear on the left-hand side. That is the student's iPad. Just an FYI, it does normally take about 15 to 20 seconds for those pieces to update, but you can update this in real time. So if I suddenly don't want for Kahoot to be in my safe app list for students to see visibly, then I can go ahead and remove that and it will update on all of my students' devices in real time. So as we can see right about here, those apps are going to start disappearing on my students' devices to where only the apps that I have on the right-hand side are going to be visible to them for the next 100 minutes while that class is active. I could always extend the time or end the class early if I choose. Now here in one other example, I've gone ahead and added a few additional apps to where now I can see on the left-hand side, there are additional apps that are visible to students. And I did this in the moment while the class was still running. Again, I could always press the green button to extend additional minutes to where the class will continue to run. And I could always press the red button to end the class right then and there. Remember, it's just ending the Mosyle classroom session. I could always start a new one whenever I choose.
So now I'm writing at right about 2 hours and 24 minutes. Let's say that will get me to lunchtime, and then I can start it up again or something like that. And you'll know right away if it has ended because the student's device will go back to normal. So if I'm depressed and now the class is ended, then the student's device is going to go back to the way it was with all the applications on it in just a moment.
Now, right below Study Apps is the Study Sites button. I wouldn't recommend doing this because the reason being is that you would have to whitelist all the sites that you want students to be able to have access to, rather than blacklisting just the ones that you don't want students to have access to. So in other words, you would have to put every single site in here that you want students to be able to have access to. And I think for kindergarten, that is not really necessary. So I wouldn't recommend turning this on, but you are more than welcome to play with it if you choose to. Next button is called Heads Up. If I'm going to turn this on while my class is currently running, it's basically just going to put a banner on the student's iPad and kind of freeze them up from doing anything and direct their attention to you. I wouldn't recommend using this in Mosyle Classroom. In the next little section in Apple Classroom, there's pieces that are just a little bit more responsive to lock out student devices and direct their attention to you, but you are more than welcome to use this feature for your students' devices if you choose. Now, there's one other component of Mosyle Classroom I wanted to direct your attention to. In the settings section down in the bottom left here, we also have the opportunity to add a co-teacher to our sessions, to our classes, to where they will also have access to all the same settings and be able to add and subtract apps in the site apps section and all those things. So I could add a co-teacher here and then also select whether or not they have access for the remainder of the day or through the next day, which would be tomorrow. So there's two options there as well. If you have a co-teacher, this could be a great opportunity to have you both supporting Mosyle Classroom. So now we have a good understanding of Mosyle Classroom. I've gone ahead and ended my session here. The next section, we're going to talk about Apple Classroom and how these two can work in tandem with each other to really enhance and reshape what learning looks like in your classroom and the management opportunities that you have in using these iPads for your kindergarten students. So now we're going to talk about Apple Classroom, and the similarities and differences between that and Mosyle Classroom would be that Mosyle Classroom is essentially the app that's running in the background, right? That allows us to hide different applications from student devices, and it just kind of runs on its own. Whereas Apple Classroom is more of a in-person, in-the-moment management system, to where you have all sorts of opportunities, such as to see what students are currently on live on their screens, lock students' devices in the moment, force them to open up certain applications so that they stay in line with your lesson, all of those sorts of things. So we're looking for the orange app with the teacher in front of the whiteboard. When you first open up your application, you're going to see all the classes that you're currently rostered with. You're going to want to check the kindergarten classroom. From here, I'm going to be able to see all my students' devices that are synced to my class. And the second that I open up a student's device, it's going to show me a live preview of the screen that they're currently on. And this is just the beginning. Now, to start us off, yes, you can see a preview and live action of whatever students are doing. So if I'm going to go ahead and click on Esmeralda and press the binoculars, that's going to allow me to see everything that she's doing in real time. So when I press this here, here's her current preview of her page. But if I am to scroll across on Esmeralda's iPad, it's going to affect what's going on my teacher's iPad live. So you can see everything that all of your students are doing live. Now, before we go any further with individual students, I do want to take a look at the very top left icon on our screen. When I press it here, it's kind of going to give me some informative info on all of my students. It's going to tell me what students are online, offline, and also what app every student or group of students is on. Right now, I only have one student online and they're on the home screen. If I want to filter what students are on the home screen, I just press that and it's going to filter just Esmeralda's iPad. Now, the other piece that I would highly suggest looking into here with that first button we selected in the top left corner is adding a new group, even just to play around with to see if it might fit for you in your classes. This can be super helpful if you're doing small groups or something of that nature. So I'm going to go press new group and I'm just going to go ahead and type this one and name it test. And what I can do from there is if I go into the edit section, and then I'm going to press the three dots on the test group. I can edit that group and determine who's going to be in that group, what students are going to be there. So when I go back over here, I can check the students that I want to be in that group. So I'm going to choose Esmeralda and five other students. Let's say that they're my small group that come to me every Monday and Wednesday. Now I'm going to have the opportunity to see exactly what they're on, along with the whole entire group of students if I go back to all. So this is a great way to filter out and see what specific groups of students are on, and you can even force push apps to just those groups of students, which we'll talk about in a minute here, which will save you some time and frustration. Now, this next button here is going to be one of your personal favorites. I guarantee it, regardless of the grade level that you support. In this case, you are all kindergarten teachers. But even if you were teaching fifth grade, this can be super helpful. Right next to the icon that we were just looking at, it is the box with a few additional boxes right above it. That is going to be the open button. So, with that, it's going to allow you to force students to open a certain application of your choosing on all of their iPads at once, so where they don't have to go through and find the application, or there's no chance of them missing what you said. So in this case, if I say everyone, we're going to go ahead and open up Clever, it's going to automatically do that for all of my students at once, to where they don't have to go through and try and find the app. So now they can go through and sign in. Or if I'm going to go back into the open app and I say everyone go ahead and go into freeform, instead of them finding it, now it is just open for them automatically in a pinch. It's going to save you quite a bit of time in transitions when students are swapping back and forth. In addition, if I see the little eyeball button with the line through it, if I press that, it's actually going to minimize the app that students are currently in and take all students back to the home screen. You can do this with groups of students as well if you've created groups. Now, if you wanted to get even more granular, you can actually go into every single individual student and force open any application for just that individual student as well if you're working with them one on one or they're the one that couldn't find that application. In addition, one thing that I really want to highlight and be sure of, you can do this with individual students or whole groups or groups that you've created. I'm just going to do it for Esmeralda here. At the very bottom, there's a little toggle that allows you to lock the app once it opens. In other words, students won't be able to close out of the app after you force push it open until you unlock their iPad. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and open up Kids A to Z. Once that syncs up and opens, students won't have the opportunity to swipe up and simply get out of that app. They are stuck in that application for that station. For example, even if they're to press the power button, they're still stuck. Now, the only way for a student to get out of that would be for me to go in and unlock that lock that I placed on their device, and then they'll be able to exit back to the home screen and go where they need to be. And as I mentioned before, you can also do this with all students by pressing that square button in the top left corner instead, and that toggle button will still be there and allow them to be locked into that app until you choose to unlock them. Unlocking students is slightly different from the lock button up in the top section. That's actually going to lock students' devices to where they are now paying attention to you. So this could be a great way to get all students' attention, and then you can unlock their devices back when they're ready to resume. Now, a friendly reminder that you can do all the same things we've shown with groups of students that you create as well. So if I want to go through and force open an application, keep them locked into that app for just my small group at the back table, I can do that as well if I've created that group. If I want to lock out just those five students' devices and have their eyes on me, I can also do that as well. Now, let's say your small groups are more fluid and you're pulling students into the back table that you just find out that they need support on a certain topic that day. There is a select button up in the top right-hand corner where you can select the specific students that you pulled in your group, or the students that are struggling, or the students that didn't get to the proper app, and still perform all the same actions that we've talked about so far today. Now, there is one other piece that I wanted to talk with you all about, and it's the compass button up in the top left. This is going to allow you to push forward specific websites to students. So rather than just having them try and find the site or type in the wrong URL or press the wrong thing in their Google browser, instead, you could just press Safari and it's going to open them up to that blank page. But if you want to get more specific, you can bookmark a specific site on your iPad first. And then what you'll do is you'll go ahead and press the compass in the top left section, and you can actually choose the bookmark that you had already made on your iPad for students to go to immediately rather than having them try and find the site. So in my bookmarks, I don't have any specific ones, but I believe I pressed Google in this example. It's going to take all students to that page rather than just to their regular page. I've also locked them into this so they can't get out of it until I unlock them. You'll also easily be able to tell what students are locked into applications with a lock underneath their name, and it will tell you the app that they're locked into. So if a student comes up and tells you they can't get out of something, you can easily double check by seeing if there's a lock on their screen. So you could individually select that student's iPad, or if you need to, you could always use the select button in the top right-hand corner and choose multiple students to unlock their devices. So now, just as a quick review, we have Mosyle Classroom, which is more of the application that's running in the background, kind of behind the scenes, that allows you to hide apps from even being visible on students' iPads, or hiding specific Safari sites, and so on and so forth. You can also, remember, add co-teachers to this and take attendance, to where if students are not in attendance, you don't necessarily have to kind of hide those sites from them unless you choose to. And then we have Apple Classroom, which is more of a management system that's in the moment, that allows you to preview students' iPads, lock them out of things, force push, open applications, and much more. Hopefully, this gives you a better understanding of both applications and how to use them in combination to support your students' learning each day.